ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਜੀ। ਮੈਂ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਅਤੇ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹਾਂ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ podcast episode ਲੈ ਕੇ Future Boulevard podcast ਦਾ. So today we have a very special guest. We have Councilor Jyoti Gondek. She will be joining us today, and we'll be sort of discussing about how youth can get involved in community service and politics, and sort of just learning about sort of what a councilor is, and also learning about Jyoti himself. So everybody, welcome Jyoti Gondek. Hi, Jyoti Gondek. How are you?
Hi, everybody. Sat Shri Akal ji. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Simran.
No, for sure. Thank you for accepting this request. I was really excited to have you here because it's really rare sort of to have somebody that is willing to sort of interact with people like me on like a level where we sort of discuss more topics about the youth and how they can sort of be involved in activities that sort of you are involved in. So I sort of want to start off this episode by discussing about what do you think, or not what do you think, but basically what is the job of a counselor? What does a counselor even do? Because me personally, as bad it is to admit, but I don't really know too much about what a counselor really does. And I was hoping you'd explain that to our viewers and to me, what it is that a counselor actually does.
It's a really good question. And I would say that probably most of the population has no idea that counselors even exist, let alone what do they do. And yeah. I don't think it's anybody's fault, or I don't think it's a matter of, people not wanting to be engaged. But when we think about elected officials, it's really engaging to think about federal elections and to think about provincial elections. Yeah. And a lot of times it's because families have party leanings, right? So like if your parents have always been conservative, they're probably going to try to convince you to be conservative, and it's always splashed all over the news. So people get very interested in this idea of partisan politics, and I think that's why we pay so much more attention to who your MP or your MLA is.
It sort of gets overlooked, you could almost say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have to say, in the Punjabi community, it has definitely always been a push to be either an MP or an MLA. I don't hear a lot of Punjabis saying, you should be a counselor, because just like everybody else in mainstream society, no one really knows what council members do. So I would have to say that it is really exciting right now in Calgary to have two members of the Punjabi community serving on council at the same time. So, George Chahal and I, first two Punjabis to serve on council at the same time, we've been able to do some really, really good work.
It's a little late, but congratulations to both of you, yeah.
Thank you. We've been able to speak Punjabi in council chambers. We've been able to highlight things. We've talked about multi-generational fleece. Very recently, we have challenged the provincial government and said, you can't talk about the fact that the South Asian community is not listening to COVID restrictions. We are, but you have to understand that a lot of our people are working the front lines. They live in homes with multiple generations. So I think we've really helped highlight what it is that our Punjabi culture brings to society, and how important it is to make sure that we are welcoming and inclusive of all types of diversity. Yeah. So, day to day, a counselor's job is really to look after the things that impact us the most. When you wake up in the morning and you turn off your alarm clock, probably because it was plugged into something. So that electricity is coming into your home. When you get up and you brush your teeth and you wash your face, we make sure your taps are running water, right? We make sure the heat comes on in your home. We look after all of the things that people sort of take for granted in their everyday routine. You jump in your car, you go to work, you bus, you go to school. All of those things are our purview and our responsibility. So it's a lot of the day-to-day, daily activities that everybody partakes in the city. And so it doesn't sound very glamorous when you put it that way, but it is also
probably basically.
Yeah, you keep the lights on. And it's really the order of government that is closest to the people. So we are right here in the city with you. We experience what you're experiencing. And I think that's what's most rewarding about it. I get to be like all of you and make change happen so that we can have a better place.
So I just have a question out of curiosity. I know you're a councillor for Ward 3. So I know, and that means, there's other councillors. So how do you sort of work together with them to basically keep the city going, keep it running? Because I'm assuming Ward 3 has its own set of issues or own set of problems that they want to solve. Like they also might be at a sort of different level than the sort of other divided areas. So how do you sort of bring up your ideas and get that fixed or for your community? Or better, how do you sort of look at a city as a whole at the same time while not ignoring your own constituents as well? Yeah.
Yeah, you know what, Simran, that's another excellent question. How do you represent the ward that elected you? And at the same time, how do you serve the city that you are a part of? So I think a lot of councillors are very good at representing their wards because they've lived there for a long time. They know what the specific needs are, and they understand how to represent those folks really well. But when you ask them to look at citywide issues, sometimes they're not as well versed. And sometimes they're just not interested because it takes all of your energy to represent your ward sometimes. But I think what I was able to bring to this position is a more holistic view of how city building should be done. I'm kind of a strange person when it comes to council. I didn't get into this with any kind of a plan. Like I didn't wake up one day and said, I'm going to be a city councillor. It was kind of accidental. In 2007, somebody asked me to run and I looked at what was involved and I said, oh my goodness, I don't have the skills to do that. And so I helped the person at that time who won the election for Ward 3. I helped on his campaign. And as I got involved in municipal issues and I understood what it's all about, I got very interested and I began to care. And then I went and did a PhD in urban sociology. And I did consulting for 12 years with the land development industry, and I ran the Westman Center for Real Estate Studies at the Haskayne School of Business. So I come in with a very specific view on how city building should be done right and how all of our communities have a role to play. So I'm very comfortable working with what should we do downtown, what should we do in the Northeast, what should we do in North Central. I'm blessed to have a very open view of the city.
Right, that's awesome. I was actually going to talk about all that anyways, but you sort of delved into it for me. I was also going to sort of ask you, when did you start? Like, how old were you when you sort of helped that person, build their campaign and whatnot?
I was old. I was quite old. It was 2007. I would have been 38.
But you just felt weren't as comfortable as running at the same time. So I sort of want to at the same time ask about your journey. Sort of, I guess you sort of already gave us a bit of an insight on that, but if you could just give us some more details on how you became to be a councillor, because I'm assuming your first aspiration was, hey, I want to go become a councillor. You know how kids have they're thinking, hey, I want to become a policeman or a firefighter. So was this your sort of first career path, or how it actually came to be?
I would say very early on, I really understood that I like to write. I can I enjoy doing it. I enjoy communicating. It's just something that, how you sometimes have things that you're very good at and you enjoy them as well. That's something I'm good at and I enjoy. So when I was in high school, you kind of wonder about what you want to do. And I thought, I think I want to be a journalist. And remember, I grew up in a Desi family where you're either going to be a doctor or a lawyer or engineer, right? Because that's what you should be. And my dad was a lawyer. So he said, oh my goodness, you're going to waste your time being a journalist and it's dangerous if you're put out in the field. Why don't you do something a little bit more, reliable? You could be anything you want to be. Why do you want to be a journalist? So we butted heads a little bit. And I think eventually Dad understood that it was my passion for doing research and writing about what I uncovered that mattered to me. So I pursued a degree in sociology in the end. Which is very interesting because how do you describe what you're going to be once you get a sociology degree? You can't. And I think that was the thing that was most interesting for me. I didn't have to choose a career. I chose a path. I chose something that allowed me to do the things I love. And then I turned it into work in various different situations. I was a policy analyst with the government of Manitoba. That was my first, big person job. I worked with the department that funded the women's shelters. I worked with, the group that looked after women's issues within the government of Manitoba. And then when my husband and I moved to Wainwright, Alberta, of all places, there was a job opportunity at the credit union doing marketing. So I sold myself as a marketer. And that's how the rest of my career took off. I looked for things that I could understand and then I demonstrated that I could do them well. So I have a
Right.
very interesting view of what education can do for you.
Yeah. No, it's awesome because you sort of, I guess, basically you took what you have and you took your interest and got an education from it, and then sort of, like you said, used it as like a backbone, you could say, and then just went off doing your own thing, sort of. So when did you actually sort of decide that you wanted to be a counselor, and also, like you mentioned before, not a lot of our community sort of focuses on city councilors and about the city in general. So how did you sort of get to know about all this?
Like I said, in 2007, when somebody thought it'd be a good idea for me to run, and I realized I didn't have the experience that was needed,
Right. Okay.
helping out on a campaign really showed me the types of issues that are important to people. So I would say for anyone who's unsure of whether you want to be involved with something like this, even if you want to work at this, let alone be a counselor, a
Yeah.
huge
Exactly. Yeah.
opportunity this year. There's a municipal election coming up. So if you can find someone that you think you can relate to and you want to volunteer on their campaign, you can learn a lot. I mean, that's how I learned. And
Is there
then
any?
2 years after that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll let you finish first. I think it's a different question, but I'll let you finish. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. 2 years after I was initially exposed to it in 2007, in 2009, I went and pursued a PhD. And it was during that education period that I was able to do a research project that really showed me how places like Rocky View County and Chestermere and Airdrie, they're not part of the city of Calgary proper, but they're part of the region. And what does growth in those areas actually mean to the city? So that's when I really started to dig into those things. And in 2012, just before I finished that degree, I was appointed to the Calgary Planning Commission, which it consists of people from administration, 2 members of council, and 6 members of the public. And that 4-year service on planning commission was like getting a degree in planning and city building. So it was while I was on planning commission that I made a recommendation to council as a commissioner. And somebody on council said, I think Commissioner Gondek needs to learn her place, which is to give us advice and not tell us what to do. And I thought that's incredibly offensive to someone who is volunteering their time. So you know what? Maybe we'll just run and I'll make decisions. And that's honestly, I decided I was going to do it.
How long have you been a counselor now? Like how many years
Since
have you been
October.
serving?
It's been 3 years.
Could you repeat that? Sorry, I think you cut off a bit.
Since October of 2017, so it's been 3 years.
2017. Oh, so 3 years ago you've been serving. That's really awesome, though. So you sort of basically started from the ground up, just working in the city and then sort of working your way to counselor. But I think that's like a really awesome thing because now you know that sort of how the inside of the city works, how the decisions are made. Do you have any sort of if anybody sort of wants to work with the city, maybe they don't want to be a counselor per se, or they just want to sort of work, help the city in other ways. They don't want to have a public face. What are the sort of ways that sort of our youth can help with that?
Yeah, you know what? I think our youth is ideally positioned right now to play a very active role in a lot of the commissions and boards and committees that the city has. Every year in about September, there's a call for applications for people to serve on different committees. Most recently this year, the one that's been very interesting to our community is the Anti-Racism Committee. My colleague George Chahal also struck up a public safety task force. There is the Police Commission, there's Planning Commission. I would encourage anybody who really wants to focus on city building and making it a great place to live to look at those volunteer opportunities. I have spent my career volunteering in a lot of really big roles. So if you think you have the stamina to, work as well as volunteer and help shape the city, you should look at those opportunities. And also within your local community associations, residents associations. I served on the Vivo board as well. So look for the type of opportunities that might allow you to make some decisions and shape the way our city grows. But most importantly, if you don't get accepted the first time, don't give up. I have been on many boards where I was rejected 2-3 times before I got on. If you believe that you're the right person, just keep applying.
Yeah, that's, I think, probably a great advice. So anybody hearing, if they ever feel like, I suppose, if there's an issue that they in their community or issue that they're having personally and they want to sort of improve on it, I guess they could do their own research and sort of figure out, what department they want to sort of go at, and they can work at it from there. And I think it's a lot of, I'd say, research on the person applying for like a job or like a position. Anyways, are these all jobs, or are they also like voluntary positions as well?
So what I just described are voluntary. So they're
Well,
boards,
all
committees,
voluntary, right?
they're all voluntary. If you're actually looking to apply for a job at the city, once again, I would recommend that if you've got that experience in your community or you've got that experience on a committee or a commission, you will be much better positioned as a candidate who can come forward and say, look, I already understand these things. This is why I think I bring value. But a lot of
Right.
times, especially when we're young, we're guided to look for a good job. We're not given a lot of guidance on how to
Yeah.
volunteer. And right now, I think our youth will be incredibly challenged to get into the careers they want to get into if they don't have a solid volunteering background. You've got to demonstrate a commitment to community in virtually everything you're doing. Even with graduate applications, they want to know what you've done as community service. So if there's one thing I can say, if you're ever interested in knowing more about how you can contribute to your community, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I will gladly show you all the different ways that you can do it.
Yeah, for sure. I'll make sure to link your email and your contact in the description below. Like as soon as this live is over. So I also wanted to sort of pick on. I'm assuming being a woman also has its own challenges. I mean, I wouldn't know, right? Like I'm male, so like I wanted to get your sort of inside aspect or like inside sort of perspective on if being a female and also being Punjabi, right? Did that ever have an impact on you running, or were your decisions ever questioned, or especially not just in more in the authoritative field, also more in like, was your family also questioning your choice of becoming a counselor?
Let's start with my family because they are incredible people. So my kid and my husband and my mom, we all live in the same household together. I think they were more excited about the opportunity for me to run when I brought it up. They all said, yeah, it's a great idea. You should totally do it. Mom, being mom, was nervous, of course. She goes, it's that whole Loki gange, right? And the nervousness around, people attacking you publicly, because that's what we face all day. So she was nervous about that. My husband was nervous about, are you sure you have the time available to do this? Because I know when you do things, you do them well. So do you have time and the stamina to do this? And so, yeah, we made a decision together as a family. And so I went in eyes wide open, knowing what it would be all about. I have to say it's interesting being a woman, especially a woman of color. When I was campaigning, there was a couple of doors where, the word Paki was used. There was a door where a guy, so, there was a guy, I think, that didn't know that I was Punjabi. And so he went on this big, long thing about, the problem with this country is we got to send all the immigrants back. Right. And I listened to him and I said, what's really wrong? And it turned out he lost his job in the patch. He applied for some franchise opportunities and didn't get them. And he was mad that immigrant families were getting those opportunities. And, when we broke it down, I said, I think you're angry at not having opportunity. And I think you're taking it out on somebody. And I think you need to know those people are struggling like you are. And maybe we need to be better about employability and not just get angry with each other. And it was amazing. He turned around and said, I'm totally voting for you. I didn't like you when I started talking to you. But, you get those little moments.
That was a very mature response from you, yeah.
It was a very good interaction. A less good interaction was my kid and my husband knocked on the door, and the guy looked at the pamphlet and said, looks like your wife's ethnic. And my husband said, yeah, she's Punjabi. And he goes, that's the problem with this city. Too many Chinese and too many Punjabi.
Too many Chinese, right?
So, there's all kinds of people in this world. You just have to rise above it.
Right.
But I'll tell you another thing that's very interesting for somebody like me. A lot of people will say, but you're not Punjabi, are you? And I'll say, well, yeah, I think I am. No. One of your parents has to be white. I'm like, no, they're Punjabi. They're both from Punjab. Trust me when I tell you, My last name used to be Garewal. I guarantee you I'm Punjabi. Because I don't look like people want me to, they have less faith that I can represent well. And I find that very funny. Our community has been electing old white men to represent us for 100 years. But, Apni Kudi comes along, doesn't look Indian enough, and people aren't quite sold that I know what I'm talking about. ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੋਲਦੀ ਹਾਂ, ਯਕੀਨ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਉਂਦਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ. Right? So it's a very place to be because I don't fit in our community properly. I don't fit in mainstream community properly. So I always feel like I'm battling to validate my role where I am. And that's tough.
That's like, yeah, it is, yeah. Because it's honestly, I mean, can you really blame them though? It's like, I'd say everybody has a sort of, they want to be in a defensive position, right? They don't want to, everybody hates change, you could say. And I'm assuming when you ran, there was no Punjabi, especially female, that was a Punjabi female that was running for a councillor position. So I can understand how that must have been difficult for the very first time. Was it like easier when you sort of ran the second time when people saw what you could do and what you've done?
I'm in my first term. I haven't had a chance to run.
Never mind. What am I saying? Well,
That's
anyways,
okay.
but like, let's think of it as a future question. Do you think people are more comfortable now with you being an elected official? Running for the city. Are people sort of more comfortable? Sorry, I just want to rephrase me. Like, are people more comfortable with the image of having a Punjabi girl running for elegant, and then helping, rise up Punjabi issues and helping them bring to light? Do you think our people are now more comfortable?
I think our people are getting there. I think our people still like men running in positions like this.
Okay.
And they like men running in positions like this because when you have a meeting with a man, you can sit beside him and it's okay. And if you decide to go out to a restaurant when it's not COVID, it's okay and nobody questions why you're out with, who's that girl that you're out with. I think our level of comfort with the leaders in our community being able to engage with women is not as high as it needs to be. And I think especially since you've got women who are now MPs and MLAs and councillors representing our community, we need to get a lot better and put aside that dynamic of men can only interact with men. It's 2020. It's going to be 2021 in a couple of days. Let's get over this. Let's start forgetting about the gender differences and let's look at what we can do together.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I have a personal question that I wanted to ask you. I wanted to get your opinion on this. It kind of just came up while you were bringing up more women that, there are more women now coming that are running in, higher positions. Do you feel like that there is a need for women to get elected and, women to run in elections? Do you feel like there's a need? Or the reason why I asked that, the next question is that, do you think women bring in a different perspective or something different to the table that men don't think about or, that can't bring up? Sorry if that's a bit of a heavy question. Yeah.
It's okay. It's a very heavy question. I think it's very important. I was on a panel. Actually, I wasn't on the panel. I was listening to a panel, but I was in one of these types of sessions about 3-4 weeks ago. And it was hosted by Minister Ahir and Minister Allard. And it was talking about whether we need more women in elected positions. And somebody said, I find when I say we need more women, I'm met with resistance. But if I say we need more diversity, then people are okay with it. And one of the consultants on the panel said, sometimes saying we need more women is uncomfortable. So to make people comfortable, you can use the word diversity. No, under no circumstances am I good with that. We do not have enough women. We need women because they are mothers. They are wives. They are the caretakers of our elders. We bring a very different perspective. We can tell you how difficult it is to run a household right now. We can tell you that if the frequency of the bus schedule doesn't allow a family to get around the city, that's a bad thing. We can tell you that when you don't build our houses for our multi-generational families, it doesn't work for us. We can tell you that when we don't feel safe getting around the city on our own, that is not a good thing. We'll tell you all kinds of things that men don't have to consider. Men aren't bad people. Men aren't, suppressing the serious issues. they've never had to deal with them. So yes, I fully
I see.
believe that more women need to be in elected positions to raise their voices.
Right. I guess I never really thought about it from that perspective, where uh, you could say I'm a bit ignorant. I don't really have too much perspective on what women's lives are like. But it's really interesting to think about, where you're sometimes being just thinking about one side. You sort of get enwrapped in it. You can't really think outside of it. So I'm glad that you shared those sort of perspectives. And I think, well, after you giving your sort of explanation, I think it is very important that more women do sort of represent our community, because, like you said, it's a whole different side, right? You get to see things from a different angle, and I think different angles are always good. And it's obviously kind of striking when they say when people say diversity is it makes them feel more comfortable than saying women. It's kind of almost funny that just saying woman makes them feel threatened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why having more women is something that we need to be sneaky about. I think it's something we need to be very blunt about. And Simran, can I give you two really good examples to explain what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. So back in 2013, when I was on Calgary Planning Commission as a volunteer, we had an application come before us to construct the new design of St. Patrick's Island Park. Now, St. Patrick's Island is right beside East Village. And so they were going to redo that whole idea as a park space. And I remember my question was, there's only 2 washrooms. That's not going to be enough. So when seniors come and when parents come with their kids, that's not going to be enough. And one of the planners said to me, well, parents should take their kids to the washroom before they leave the house. And I remember laughing, and the audience started laughing. And I said, you don't have kids, do you? And he goes, well, no, I don't. And I said, kids don't go to the bathroom when you tell them to. They go when they feel like it. So, it was a very example of people planning a space, not thinking about how people would actually use it. Our seniors are always saying, why are there no washrooms at the transit stops?
Yeah.
Right? Those things are all important. That's lived experience. Here's another example for you. This was about a month ago. We had what's called a land use application come to council.
Right.
That basically means that you're permitted to do something on this piece of land, and now you want to do something different. So it's in the Northeast. It's in the McCall area, and the landowner, who is not Punjabi, wants to turn that piece of land into a crematorium. Right. So I think that's a service that's missing in our community. I think it's a service that's missing over in the Northeast. I think it's something that is absolutely appropriate. Well, the entire conversation revolved around, will there be enough parking spots? And that was the people that didn't want it argued about parking spots. The people that did want it argued that, yes, there is enough parking spots. And so when I got my chance, I said, I can't believe that members of the South Asian community that require crematoriums to depart, with their loved ones are being questioned on parking. Did you stop to think for a second that they are making do in any way they can? Do you really think they want to come to an industrial area to say goodbye to their loved one? Did you ever think about their grief, or are you only focused on parking? Because that's embarrassing. And that was sort of the moment where everybody went, oh my God, we didn't even consider that people are going to be grieving. So who really cares about the parking situation? And it proved that you need to talk about those things. You can't make it so antiseptic that we're not talking about people will use the spaces we're creating.
No, yeah, that's really scary to think about, where you sort of people, I suppose, do really get focused on an issue where they sort of miss the bigger picture of why they're creating the facility in the first place, right? And it's actually a really good thing that you brought up, that we do need a lot of sort of essential services that aren't really nearby. I'm assuming there are other places like that around Calgary, but just in Northeast itself, I guess we're missing that part. Yeah. I was wanting to go back to sort of initially from where we started onto where we talked about how you were part of Ward 3, and you want to look after Ward 3, but at the same time you also want to look at the city as a whole as well. are there any sort of decisions you've sort of had to make that are more focused on Ward 3, but like they're more beneficial for Ward 3 itself, but they don't really help out the city overall? Just as a general question.
I would say that any decisions that I make for the residents of Ward 3 have been in the context of the city. So, really good example, we couldn't get funding for the expansion of Vivo. And I dug in and figured out where to get that funding from very early in my term. And I worked very hard on that, and I built support from my colleagues, the other 14 members of council, to say, this is a very good idea. This is why we need to expand this facility. So it could be looked at as a selfish move if that's all I ever did, if I only made decisions that impacted Ward 3. But I will tell you, the biggest decision I had to make was about the Green Line, right? The new rapid transit project. And it's before I got on council, the decision was made to go south first before north. And I will never be okay with that decision. I will always say that it was the wrong decision. I never agreed with it then. I don't agree with it now. The problem is I'm one person and I can't go back and change that decision. What I can do is make sure that North Central Calgary gets what it needs moving forward. So when the idea of the Green Line was before us in June, the one thing that was missing for me is there was no promise of ever coming north. And so I held out and I said, I don't support this until you give me something for the north. And so we worked on it. And now we have a functional planning study is what they call it, which means they're actually looking at how to get that line built up to the north. And in the interim, they will give us bus rapid transit solutions. So sometimes you have to dig in and fight for your ward to do the right thing for the city.
Right. So if you have to sort of keep a balance, you could say, while you're looking out for your own ward, you also have to look at the bigger picture and focus on the city as well, see how it impacts. You got to play on both sides, basically.
You do. You always have to. And sometimes you will need to make a decision that is better for the city, and your ward will have to wait for something. But those are decisions that you have to make.
I also want to sort of ask you about the youth. Also, I want to ask you if you feel like there is a need for younger people to get involved in community service, not exactly to be in elected positions per se, but just to sort of get involved in helping the community. Do you feel like there is a lack of young people here in Calgary, specifically, that you feel like we're not helping our youth come forward, helping them, give them positions or put them in a position where they can come forward and help our community? Do you think that is a sort of an issue in our community?
I don't know that it's an issue. I think traditionally, Desi families are not engaged in volunteerism outside of our own community. I think we're very good at volunteering, for the Gurdwara, or the like you're doing, with broadcasting, that sort of thing. I think we're very good at doing that sort of thing. I think we become a little bit uncomfortable, and sometimes we're unaware of the opportunities outside of our own community. And the perspective that I bring is different because I grew up in a place where I was the only one that looked like this, right? Like at best, there were 6 Indian families in Brandon, Manitoba when I was in junior high and high school. And so me moving to Calgary was the most bizarre thing, coming to the Northeast and going, oh my goodness, everybody looks like me. This is amazing. I can't believe we have this many Punjabis in one place. I grew up in Manitoba where there was not a big Punjabi population. So I think it has given our community an amazing opportunity to do good things within our community. But I need to pull people out of our community into the mainstream so that we can make as much of an impact on the city overall. So I think that's where the disconnect comes. But I think, broadcasting services like yours with Jag Punjabi, I think with the entire Punjabi media network, with stations like Fairchild and Red FM, we're getting the word out to people. And I think more people are understanding that those opportunities exist and why it's good for us to mix together with mainstream society to bring about the right kind of change. I don't think the problem is our youth. I think youth would willingly be engaged in those things. I think the problem is just never done it. So I think we need to get better at that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I hope I can be, some sort of an example. Actually, for the viewers that don't know, I actually do work with the Gurdwara as well. We sort of we're in a think tank sort of place where we sort of just bring up ideas or sort of improve the situation with the Gurdwara. Right now, we're sort of trying to expand on what we do as a Gurdwara, which is sort of not just sort of work within the Gurdwara, and also expand to the city as well, sort of help out there as well. So uh, I personally think that the reason why I asked, because I felt that a lot of people, like you mentioned, we do a lot of community service in the Gurdwara. There's a lot of people that donate a lot of things. They help out with their own services, and they're even willing to lend out anything that we sort of ask for, and it's awesome there. But like you mentioned, I think there is a lack of sort of mainstream attention to community service, sort of helping with the city itself, right? Or not even the city, maybe the province. I know there's like sick organizations that help out on like a lot of bigger level, like Khalsa Aid and whatnot. But just as like a sort of household thing, we sort of look to the Gurdwara as a community service, like a beacon for community service, but we don't really sort of move out of that. I assume that requires more effort. Like you said, you sort of, if you want to volunteer at a position where you have some sort of say, you'd have to apply there, right? Just so they can see they're hiring the right individual.
I'm going to add to something you just said, because I think what you just talked about in this past year, I think the Gurdwara has revolutionized how the community sees the Gurdwara's role in the city. I think you finally harness the power of social media. I think you guys figured out who to connect with. Yeah, who to connect with to get your ideas out. I think you have done an incredible job this year of, the food bank. And then there was, the outreach to truckers. There's the community gardens that just got a lot of profile from the sprawl. I think you have taken the time during COVID when you couldn't congregate like we used to, and you revolutionized, use that word very, very specifically. You revolutionized the way the Gurdwara is seen within this city as a service organization. It is no longer just a place of worship. It is a service organization. And that was the key. Mm-hmm. That's what makes it different. Now, when we're talking about the Kisan movement and the whole idea of, the Punjabi farmers, the one thing that I've been doing is trying to explain to people who are not Punjabi why this movement matters. And, it's as easy as saying there was a neoliberal play to take away fixed pricing, and that would kill the livelihood of farmers. If you let that happen in one nation, it will happen in another, and you will put our food production at risk. Those are messages we need to. That's how you get a global movement going. So I'm incredibly proud of what the Gurdwara and the community this year.
Yeah, so am I, and it's thank you for your compliments, because I'm not to go here, but like I'm actually really proud of working in an environment that sort of says that encourages youth to sort of do these things. Our supervisor, his name is Raj Sidhu, and he's very adamant about. If you guys have any idea, come to me. We'll make it happen, right? We'll get things in motion. I'm really happy that Raj Sidhu, he sort of looks over that sort of aspect of the community service aspect of the Gurdwara. And I'm really happy that he's given us this sort of platform to work on it. But sort of going back to youngsters, I would encourage people to sort of, or like youth, to sort of get more involved in these kind of things, because not only is it good for yourself, you're also sort of helping other people to expand their own reach, and also. There's also a youth parliament that youngsters can. We have our own Alberta's youth parliament. Every province has one. Sadly, a lot of the provincial youth parliaments are sort of shutting down due to lack of membership. Our Albertan parliament actually is still up. Albertan Youth Parliament. I'm not sure if you know about this, Jyoti. Do you know about the youth parliament?
I don't know about the youth parliament, and you know what? I would say there's probably no time like the present to really activate your urban centers. Trying to do things provincially is good, but I would say if you can get a chapter up and running in Calgary where you're close to each other, you're able to have those conversations with each other, that would be a big boon right now.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have any other sort of ideas that you wanted to share with sort of the youth on how they can sort of get more involved in the city, or just get involved in general with community service?
Yeah, you know what? Reach out to people like me and George. I mean, we're always open to talking to, anyone that has any type of questions. I'm happy to engage however you would like to. I'm always open to come on, broadcasts like this one. I think sometimes you just don't know where to start, right? Like, how do I figure out where I want to give back if I don't even know what the opportunities are? So I would say to anybody out there who wants to make sure that they're able to engage with community opportunities, reach out to people that you know can give you the insight on how to do that. It's taking that first step. It feels like a big step. It's not that big. Just take that first step and find out what it is that you could be doing. And it's incredibly rewarding to go through life knowing that you've given back to the place that you live in.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I'm incredibly grateful to you for coming on to our show and sharing your knowledge and letting me pick on your brain a little bit. Was there anything else you want to say before we sign off for today?
I just want to say, a lot of people talk about youth like it's some sort of a generation that's going to come up and lead. You're already leading. You're already doing some amazing work. I think the youth right now globally are in a position where you have understood as a generation that life isn't just about how much money you make. And I think you've had so many problems thrown at you with climate change, with economic decline, with global human rights, that you realize you can't sit on your hands and just hope it gets better. You have become more engaged and involved at a global level than any generation before you. And I would just say, keep at it. You are teaching us, those of us that are older than you, that it can be done. You give us hope for the future, and you need to come to us and say, I'm not getting the support I need, and we will help you. Just please keep being amazing as a generation. I'm very, very proud of the youth in our city right now. I'm very proud of the youth in our community. I would say, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's very interesting that you said that youth aren't some upcoming sort of generation. They are already here, or they're already doing things for the community. They're already making decisions, they're already doing actions that, sort of look at the bigger picture, like you said. It's not all about sort of going out there making money. There's more to life than that. And I'm really glad that you brought that point up. So thank you so much, Jyoti, for coming. And for viewers that are watching, we will be going live again next Saturday as well. Hopefully. And actually, I just got an idea. Since you, as you said, you don't know about youth parliament, we might actually do an episode on our youth parliament, because I'm actually a member of the Alberta Youth Parliament, where we sort of bring up any debate ideas that we sort of want to. It's more sort of focused on how parliament works on for like the federal parliament, or even in provincial parliaments, or that's how sort of the debate works. It's also really good to know how, for youth especially, how decisions are made, how the discussions go, what is sort of the procedure. And it's just a great opportunity for youth that I think it's very missed. That I was actually lucky enough to be contacted by Roop Rai and Irfan Sabir. They actually helped me get into this, and I've been part of them since. And we actually have a lot of background work that we are doing, and it's a lot of opportunity for sort of youth to get in an authoritative position where they sort of learn a lot of skills. And I think it'll be a good idea to discuss that for our next episode. But until then, thank you so much, Jyoti, for coming.
Thank you. And you know what? As you're talking about youth parliament, if you need a little bit of insight on how the local side of it works, because we do a lot of debate, we do a lot of important motions that impact us all. I know that George and I would be happy to help out however we can. So thank you again for having me on. Sat Shri Akal Sabnu ji.
Yeah. Anyways, thank you everybody that joined, that tuned in, and we hope you guys learned something. And that's what we try to do here, just share something that everybody might learn, something educational, and hope that you guys take action on some of the topics that we discuss. So thank you for everybody that tuned in, and we'll see you guys in our next episode.